So, before we begin, why not visit www.lotuseaters.com and read Why Unconscious Bias Training Does Not Work, Part 1, Weekend Podcast number 15, where Josh and Callum talk about the pitfalls of unconscious bias training. Now, let the identity games begin. An article came into my attention titled General Motors Funds Transgenderism Efforts in Children's Classrooms. I'm reading from the article. General Motors provided a grant to a pro-transgender organization that supplies kindergarten and elementary classrooms with children's books that supports its ideology. The Detroit-based automaker made a donation last year to the Gay and Lesbian and Straight Education Network's GLSEN's Rainbow Library program.
I mean, GLSEN, that abbreviation's kind of sus. Not going to lie, that's kind of sus.
It is very suspicious, and you will see that the more we go along.
Oh, the second I see anything educational related to gay and lesbian for, like, small children, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I do not trust the intentions of anybody funding these sorts of things. And it's just a shame that even a company, just like a random car company, General Motors, is like, we need to have a stake in this conversation. No, you don't. Make cars. There you go.
And how do you feel about the Rainbow Library program of that organization?
The Rainbow Library program. So this will just be books like genderqueer. They'll probably get some gender trouble. They'll probably get Gail Rubin in there as well with her book talking about how nonces are actually the same as civil rights activists in the 1960s and people like that, you know.
We have all sorts of colorful stories. Okay, let's continue. The pro-transgender organization is known for lobbying school districts to allow boys who have undergone sex changes to play on girls' sports teams and use female-specific restrooms, Breitbart reported. The GM report admitted to funding the Rainbow Library's efforts to provide supporting curriculum, materials, and book sets that are LGBTQ+ centered, racially diverse, and multicultural to K-12 schools. This innovative program also provides ongoing support and professional guidance for educators to create inclusive, supportive, and identity-safe classrooms nationwide, it continued. GM did not mention how much money was awarded to the pro-transgender group, but it did provide $86.7 million in cash and in-kind donations to nonprofits working to help create inclusive solutions to social issues around the world in 2021, according to the report. Now, pro-transgender organization attempts to change school curriculum. GLSEN has been accused of allegedly trying to add trans and non-binary gender theory into school policies and curriculum. According to its website, GLSEN provides a list of lesson plans, educator guides, and professional development trainings for educators. So they are trying to make classes more inclusive, and they're trying to say that we can do this by having more LGBTQ+ friendly material.
Yeah,
and they want to have teachers adopt the practices that they recommend in order to achieve their goals.
Yeah, this is very unsurprising. They want to monopolize the kinds of values that are being taught within schools because obviously they try and dress it up. They try and portray it as neutral. We're just relaying the facts of the matter, but that's not actually the case. It's never the case. Back earlier on, last year now, me and Thomas did that video where we were talking about what are your kids actually being taught in school, where it was this video presentation by this incredibly effeminate, I'm sure he would describe himself as queer man. I think it was like fantastically Latin X or something was on his t-shirt that he was wearing for all of the videos. And he was just misrepresenting the information to children, presenting them with obviously politically biased books where it's about a teddy bear who's a boy, but the teddy bear wants to be a girl teddy bear. All this sort of information presented in a cute, colourful, shiny, child-friendly way to present them very child-unfriendly information. And wouldn't you also be surprised? I go onto GM, I just type into Google General Motors ESG, what do I come up with? General Motors, ESG leader in the auto industry. So even if General Motors, because they stick to these sorts of things, it's unsurprising because ESG is basically a racket to ensure that all companies that fall under it, if they don't want to promote these values, then they're going to get absolutely hammered in the stock market because they will just have their stock prices destroyed right from under them just due to the power of places like BlackRock and Vanguard who enforce the ESG mechanisms. Is absolutely ridiculous.
I agree, and especially there is this SRI initiative, the socially responsible investing part in ESG, that it's responsible for.
So this
all
is
this.
probably funding these sorts of organisations and these kinds of activist lobbies are probably a way of getting the ESG score up on that socially responsible investing.
Yeah. So we'll start with some of the books that they suggest, and then move to some of the games that they suggest.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. So one of the books, which can be found on Amazon, is called I Am Jazz, about a boy who discovered that he was a girl from the age of 2. Now, if we click the Amazon link and we scroll down a bit, we see that the reading age is 4 to 8 years.
Mm-hmm. This was one of the books on that curriculum that Thomas and I looked at. It is absolutely ridiculous. Some of the claims that were made were sick, and it was obvious that this child had just been manipulated by their parents because he was just a normal kid, and like normal kids do, they explore boundaries, they push boundaries so they can understand what's acceptable. He plays with girls' toys and says, "Oh, I think I'm a girl," at 2 years old, and the parents go, "Right, we'll get you an appointment with the doctor."
Let's click on the next link, the video, to see exactly what is going on.
I thought I recognized this person.
It was like a dream. This is a moment that I had always envisioned.
It's a dream she's had for as long as she can remember.
What happens in the good fairy dream?
So when I was 2 years old, I went up to my mom and asked her, when is the good fairy gonna come with her magic wand and change my penis into a vagina?
You were 2.
Yeah.
For the now 18-year-old Jazz Jennings, that dream is about to become a reality.
This is something I've always known that I wanted.
BS, do not trust, obvious nonsense. This is a child who has been brainwashed, gaslit, and fed lines for his entire life. People always point out this example, but we can just go back to the example of John Money and his sick experiments with poor David Raymer. You know, or if I don't really feel like going over that story right now, but look up John Money and his sick experiments to see exactly how these kinds of experiments go, because that's what this is. This is an experiment.
Okay.
A sick one at that.
Let us go to the next link, which takes us back to the main article.
There we go. I think we're back to the main article, aren't we? Yeah, Thinking Conservative?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I can see right there, top line, another example.
Another example from the book list is The Sexually Explicit Genderqueer by Maya Kabobi, which contains depictions of sexual activities and descriptions of fantasies and experiments. Megan Brock, a parents' rights advocate, accused Gleason of attempting to exploit the Rainbow Library program to covertly groom and influence educational policy in a Twitter post. Brock posted a video of a Gleason meeting of what appears to be staff discussing the promotion of transgender books to children. In addition to children's books, the organization has been trying to influence school math departments with articles like, "How do we make math class more inclusive of trans and non-binary identities?" Because math classes are supposed to be very anti-trans. Now,
how do we make trans-inclusive maths?
I don't know. This is just the next chapter of craziness. Now, if we go to the next link, we will see from Megan Brock's Twitter account, if we click on the second photo, that Gleason is giving advice for LGBTQ plus youth for how to survive Christmas. And
this immediately brings up, I have seen some very based Christmas stories from the Twitter page Transphobes Posting W's, Transphobes Posting Dubs, which had some very amusing stories.
And it has this, it's addressed to this with this vague notion, non-affirmative homes Or yeah, and it says home for the holidays. Holiday breaks can feel long and exhausting to LGBTQ plus students that do not have safe homes. It is helpful to be in community with others by looking for safe spaces around you, including nearby shops, organizations, and other groups of people, or even friends.
As far as I'm concerned, all this is doing is taking kids out of their homes and
Yes.
just encouraging them to go to
Yes.
people who will predate on them.
Yes, and tells them that basically if your parents disagree with your self-conception when you're a teenager or younger, then your home is not safe and
People
leave your home.
always complain when you use the term groomer against
Yeah.
these kinds of people, but this is actual grooming behavior.
So let's go to the next link, which is a video, and listen to what people from GLSEN are saying.
So the Rainbow Library, we send LGBTQ plus affirming books to schools and libraries for free, along with additional GLSEN resources. We have 4 different grade ranges for the books that we send out: K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. We put a major emphasis on books that center the voices of trans and non-binary people, as well as books that center the voices of BIPOC LGBTQ plus people. I know myself as a former teacher that having a high quality LGBTQ plus affirming books at my fingertips would allow me to seamlessly integrate this into a reading lesson that I otherwise would be teaching anyway, right? So it's that first step for getting in front of kids, getting into the instruction for all students. And last but not least, the Rainbow Library serves as a positive proof point. So it can allow a district or a state to have that first stepping stone for inclusive curriculum at the district or state level, right? So once a Rainbow Library is rolled out at a school and adults, family members see all the positive impacts of it there. They hear the positive stories of students feeling affirmed and safe because of these books, activating their curiosity. There is more demand for more change, including policy change.
I mean, this is just pretty typical. I've seen plenty of this before. What organisations like this will tend to do as well as the Rainbow Library, which they said explicitly, positive proof point. So they're trying to use it as just a stepping stone, like they say, to get it into district and state levels, which places like Seattle, Washington State, and California are already more than happy and eager to do. They'll also set up within these schools things called Gay Straight Alliance clubs, the GSA clubs, which are just boot camps for kids to be indoctrinated. Never take these people on their word. Never take them as good faith. They're not trying to educate kids. They're not trying to create a more positive environment for kids. They're just trying to brainwash them into their ideology and values. It's awful.
Yes, it is typical behavior coming from those organizations, but I searched a bit more.
Oh, yeah.
And I found some really disturbing things.
Oh, great.
They have, if we go to the next link, they have this policy, document saying that is titled "Educating Educators," and in the preface, in page 9, if we go, they say that teachers are often the first adult allies LGBTQ plus students share their identity with. It is critical that these teachers be trained and prepared in how to support these young people. And then it continues, while the vast majority of teachers feel a strong obligation to ensure a safe and supportive learning environment for their LGBTQ plus students, many teachers are not prepared to act on this responsibility. This leads to inaction and ultimately negative outcomes for LGBTQ plus youth and all students in school. So they need to give instruction.
How do we get these teachers to toe the line?
How do we get this? Yes. Now, if we go to page 72 out of 100 of the document, they also say teacher educators have a responsibility to prepare their pre-service students with skills and knowledge to support and affirm LGBTQ youth in their classes and create learning environments that are supportive of LGBTQ youth, people, and topics. By engaging in LGBTQ inclusive teaching themselves, and including LGBTQ specific topics in their courses, teacher educators support similar work in their students' future classrooms. Okay, now, one interesting thing about this is that there is zero mentioning of the notion of detransitioners.
Oh, that's absolutely the case. They don't want them to know that detransitioners exist. They don't even, if they're starting to experience or ask these questions, they don't want the teachers to even make them aware that there's anything other than affirmative response. You can only ever affirm them. They classify in all of the literature, in all of these PSAs that they put out, that non-affirmative responses will kill the children. That's what they say. They'll just say, if you do not affirm, the kid will kill themselves.
So
it's
what?
A threat.
Yeah. So they are not listening to what many detransitioners say about their predicament, and many of them are saying that one of the major problems that got them confused in the first place was gender affirmation from their social circle.
Yeah, in fact, when I was reading, when we did the book club on irreversible damage, one of the things that was pointed out was even outside of the schools, a lot of these confused kids on Tumblr and such, they'll go to TikTok and find videos of trans influencers who will tell them the exact, basically just give them a script to read out. If you're speaking to an adult and you say you're trans and they're not affirming, just say you'll kill yourself if you don't. Literally, it's not an honest threat. It is just a threat to make you feel bad and make you just go along with whatever they want.
And it is very annoying, because not only annoying, but I think it's unethical, because
it's disgusting.
You know, as an ex-educator, we were constantly told that we have a duty to care about our students. So how do you care about your students if you don't show them the bigger picture?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. That the way they do it is they classify care. They basically play on people's base emotions of feeling bad.
And they have some weird recommendations about how to make classes more inclusive. Now, let's go to the next link. One brick at a time, building inclusive classrooms.
Is that a reference to the whole, Stonewall was started by a trans black woman throwing bricks or something? Is that...
No, this is... Up so far, what we have said was typical. What comes afterwards is not typical. Now,
right.
Lego is involved in this, unfortunately.
Okay.
Let's move further. If we go on page 4, we see that this is a suggestion for elementary school activities. They have some games that they propose children to play.
Okay.
With Lego bricks. Now, let's go to page 6. Which is Identity Tower LGBTQ plus game. Now, this again is for elementary school. Now, let us read, and I want to hear your response after this.
All right.
Okay, so activity type, pairs or small group, 3 to 4 students. Activity length, 20 to 40 minutes. Materials, 1 set of Lego, 6 bricks for each student, a large sheet of paper, chalkboard, or whiteboard. Now, purpose. This activity will encourage students to reflect on their own identity in a supportive and affirming environment. Learning outcomes. Practice choosing words, adjectives, and identity terms that describe them. Learn the importance of respecting people's identity terms and descriptive words. Contribute to a classroom culture that celebrates diversity. Now, activity setup. This activity can be done in pairs or in small groups of 3 to 4 students. Allow groups to find a space in the classroom to work together. Instructions. Here is where the weird part begins. Give a Lego 6, or the uber weird. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Give a Lego 6 bricks set to each student. Explain that we all have an identity. Our identities are what make us who we are special, and should be celebrated. Write out the parts of identity that will be included in this activity on the large sheet of paper, whiteboard, or chalkboard. And they have
there's so much newspeak in all of this already.
Name or nickname, gender, race or culture, hobbies, values, family. And they say now, instruct students to use 6 Lego 6 bricks as a tool to build a tower that represents themselves. Ask students to assign parts of their identity to the Lego bricks they feel each color represents. Inform students that they can build their tower any way they want to. They will use the tower to represent parts of their identity. Students will assign the colors to what they associate the above aspects of identities to, and explain why. Be sure to explain that there are many more identities than our list of 6. Encourage students to build their towers and then to share what their tower means to their partner or small group. Finish the activity by having a large group discussion using the guiding questions. Now, one thing to note before I ask you what you think about this and before we go to the guiding questions.
I feel like people can guess what I think of this.
Yes, but these people are confused about how they write. They're talking about parts of identity, and then they say, be sure to explain that there are many more identities than our list of 6. So they completely confuse kids about the distinction between identity and parts of identity or aspects of identity. So, and let's go down to the guiding questions in page 7. So, what do you like most about getting to see other people's towers? How would you feel if someone tried to change your tower? Did you learn anything new about anyone? If you could add anything else to your tower, what would it be?
Okay. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. All right. Well, for one, I hope to see. I'm going to word this correctly. I hope to see this completely backfire, and I hope to see children unintentionally make based towers about their gender and race and such. But barring that, this is obvious nonsense, and it's built on a number of presuppositions in the first place that we really, really need to dismiss. Just scroll back up for me, John, so we can go back to... Wait, no, actually, I've got it written down here in your notes. The talk about... Where is it? Yes, the explain that we all have an identity. Our identities are what make us who we are. Okay, that's fine. I can accept that.
Yeah.
Are special? No. And should be celebrated? No, these are actually, they sound nice, they sound really caring. Oh, we want to make sure the kid feels good all time, all day, every day. We don't want to make them feel negative emotions ever at any point, despite the fact that they can actually be beneficial to give kids thicker skin so they understand how the world actually works. But no, you're not special. The vast majority of people are very far from special. The vast majority of people will conform to whatever the prevailing attitudes of their day are, as we can see through all of this, because this is actually what this is designed to do. It's not designed to make you an individual. It's not designed to make you special. It's designed to make you just another soldier in the army of the woke. Most people are mundane, and that should be celebrated. No, you are who you are is a statement of fact. It's not a statement of value judgment. It's a statement of just, well, you are who you are. You can decide what to do with that. I shouldn't have to celebrate it. Nobody else should be forced to celebrate anything that they don't want to in that way, especially when it's going around just trying to brainwash kids. It is really insidious because they are very slick and very evil in the way that they find appealing kids' toys and kids' games to try and slide all of this in. But once again, my only hope from all of this is if they do actually do these kinds of stupid games, is either the kids get confused and don't understand what's going on, especially if they're trying to get like 5-year-olds to do this sort of thing. Kids won't understand it at that point, or they end up being very based by accident. That's my main hope, but this is obvious nonsense.
I want to add some questions. So first, why should ever identity be a debate, especially when it comes to elementary school children?
Yeah, these concepts are far above their heads. And I mean, most university students that are doing sociology degrees and such are still too stupid to actually understand most of it, and they end up just parroting lines that they've heard from the teachers.
And also, why should they explain why they associate a particular color with a part of their personality or identity?
That seems arbitrary, almost just to make sure that, oh, it's bright and colourful so the kids will enjoy it.
Yeah, and just some further points that they say encourage students to build their towers and then to share any way they want it. Okay, yeah, it's the one bullet point. Inform students that they can build their towers any way they want to. They will use the tower to represent parts of their identity. Now, this is, it seems to me like a messed symbolic metaphor, because identity is not something that you fix like you fix a Lego tower. They could, for instance, choose to put 4 bricks instead of 6. What does that mean? Does that mean that they can opt out of they can opt out of their hobbies or values, or out of their gender or race?
Yeah, you've got a good point there, because identity as it exists is not something, like you say, that we opt into. It's not something that you construct yourself, and most people's attempts to try and construct their own unique identity are pretty narrowly exclusive to teenage years to about 30, as far as I can tell. And then they realise, all of those attempts to be a unique, special snowflake individual were horribly embarrassing. And then they just go about being a normal person for the rest of their lives. But because you're programming this into these kids from such a young age, we are getting now the results of this kind of training that people have had, where now we're getting more and more people into their 30s and 40s who are becoming the ideal consumer, who are becoming just arrested development. They're just stuck in a particular phase of their development that they never want to go out of because it's easy, allows them to indulge in hedonistic pleasures, take no responsibility for their lives, and ultimately waste what little time we're granted on Earth.
And there's a very pernicious theme here. There's a pattern in what kids are being taught by people of this sort, of this persuasion, that identity is a matter of what you want it to be. So you are who you want to be. Now, I can definitely understand an old interpretation of the statement where that says that basically you can choose your values. It's a bit far-fetched.
It's a bit Gen X.
It's a bit far-fetched, but it makes sense. That it's logically coherent. We say that, yes, we can engage in reflection and subject our values to critical...
That's true.
To critical...
the research of people like Jonathan Haidt in The Righteous Mind has shown that that's not really true. Most of us were just going by gut instincts and then using our higher mind to rationalize what we were already going to do anyway.
Let us say that this is an open debate. But the point is that it's one thing to say that there are some parts of your identity that are not essential, like, for instance, some of your current beliefs. And quite another thing to say that, gender is non-essential. And it can be whatever you want it to be. And kids, for instance, can like some colors, then stop liking them. They're very prone to suggestion. What if the cool kids have a tower that is considered to be a better tower? Then yes.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's
then maybe they will all start saying, well, the cool kids have another tower. I want to change mine.
Well,
and meanwhile, they have already associated the parts of their personality with colors.
Yeah.
And then they want to switch color, and then they...
You've brought up a good point, because it's very likely as well, because most people don't make their own opinions for themselves, especially when you're a kid, is that the teacher will come up to the most inclusive tower and go, oh, this is really good. Everybody gather around and look at this tower. This is what we should be aiming for. And all the kids will just conform to that because they think that's what will get them praise.
So if you look at the whole PDF file, you'll see that from the beginning it seems like, some games. Then the more you read into it, it seems like Alice in Borderland games. So it seemed to me to be very...
To be fair, the missus has been watching that on Netflix recently. It's pretty entertaining, to be fair, if you've watched it.
Yes, I have. But these are not games that I would like children to compete.
Those are pretty brutal games. Tag, where the man who's it has a machine gun, is not the game that I want my kids to be playing.
Yeah, the King of Spades. Was it? Yeah, okay. So, that's it.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to check out all the content we have on the site, such as the new series, Brokenomics, which Dan is doing. If you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.